Boker Tov, good morning. And Moadim L'Simcha. We continue with our 3-minute daily dose of Torah, looking at those opening verses of Parshat B'Shalach, which we will read on the last day of Pesach. When finally we arrive at the Red Sea, that'll be the climactic moment. But those opening verses describe the departure from Egypt and sort of the journey these first few days. We looked at the past 2 days and the question of Chamushim and what that phrase was interested in telling us. Here I want to have a look at one other thing that the Torah goes out of its way to mention, that Moshe took Atzmot Yosef imo, the bones of Joseph with him, because he had caused the children of Israel to take an oath that when God would remember them, that we should bring up his bones. And indeed, that's exactly as it's described in the end of Breshit. That's what he says in chapter 50, verse 25. It says to his brothers on his deathbed. And there is, on the one hand, the two components here. One is sort of the bookends we already described a little earlier. That the descent to Egypt begins with Yosef, and the ascent from Egypt is going to also then have the emergence of Yosef with the children of Israel together. At the same time, it's about making good on the promise that the Bnei Yisrael made to their brother, the rest of the brothers made to him that day. And it's Moshe who does this. Here you have an interesting read, which suggests that and it almost sounds like a critique that the right person, the righteous person, will take mitzvos, yikach mitzvot, and how do you know that he takes mitzvos? Because that's the story of Moshe. The rest of the Bnei Yisrael were borrowing the gold and silver from the Egyptians. And Moshe, it wasn't about the material things for Moshe, it was the mitzvot, and somehow setting a distinction between the two. I never really understood that midrash so well, because they too, when they were collecting the gold and silver, that was a command of God. It was actually a plea of God to them. When God said, "Please go and get gold and silver from the Egyptians before you leave," and the midrashic read on that was that God said, "Because I promised that to Avram, that that they ultimately the Jews would leave with great and many possessions." So they're also doing mitzvos. I didn't fully understand that, but minimally we are supposed to recognize that there are mitzvos which serve us, and they are mitzvos, and there are mitzvos which are selfless mitzvos. Including burying the dead in this case, caring for the dead. And Moshe finds his way to his last moments. You can really imagine, right? The tumult of organizing all these people after the last plague and ready to march, and Moshe makes his way to seemingly at that moment, those last moments, to find the bones of Yosef, that there can be a fulfillment of the promise that was made to him, and we indeed could bring closure to the descent down to Egypt by bringing up Yosef's bones in the ascent from it. I hope this was a meaningful series of learnings with you, and I hope that the Yontif ahead will be much joyous for you as well. Have a great day.